Mycenae in Greece's legendary heroic age, around 1200 BCE. If you just saw Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, you met the end of this story. Here is the whole thing, and it is messier than one film can hold. Two brothers married two sisters. That is where the trouble starts. In The Odyssey, Lupita Nyong'o played both sisters at the center of it, which tells you how tangled the family was, before anyone drew a knife. Menelaus was king of Sparta, and his wife was Helen, later called Helen of Troy. His older brother was Agamemnon, king of Mycenae, married to Helen's sister, Clytemnestra. When the Trojan prince, Paris, carried Helen off to Troy, Menelaus wanted her back and called in his big brother for muscle. Agamemnon assembled the largest Greek army ever gathered and sailed off to punish another man for stealing someone's wife. Hold on to that detail. It ages badly. Before he left, he created a problem that would sit at home, waiting 10 years for him. The fleet was trapped without wind, and in the later tragedies, the goddess Artemis was the cause. A prophet told Agamemnon the ships would move only if he sacrificed his daughter, Iphigenia. So he sent Clytemnestra a message. Bring Iphigenia to camp. She is going to marry the hero Achilles. There was no wedding. The girl arrived and found the altar prepared for her. Some versions say Artemis saved her at the last second. Others say her father went through with it so his warships could catch the wind. Clytemnestra spent the next decade remembering the version where her daughter never came home. While Agamemnon besieged Troy, his cousin, Aegisthus, stayed in Mycenae with a grudge of his own. Their fathers came from a dynasty that stole thrones, murdered children, and on one memorable evening, served those children to their own father for dinner. This was not a family that settled disputes with a calm conversation. Aegisthus began courting the queen. In Homer, she held out at first, since Agamemnon had left a court poet behind to watch her. Aegisthus dealt with the poet by rowing him to an empty island and leaving him there. Ancient home security had gaps. By the time Troy fell, Aegisthus and Clytemnestra were sharing a bed and a kingdom. Then the sails came back. Agamemnon returned expecting a parade. He also brought Cassandra, a captured Trojan princess, home as his mistress, riding beside him in the chariot for the whole city to see. As a peace offering to the wife whose daughter he had killed, this needed work. Clytemnestra met him at the door, all warmth. In Aeschylus, she waited until he was in the bath, dropped a robe or a net over him so his arms were useless, and struck him 3 times while he stood tangled and half drowned in his own welcome. Cassandra died too. Then Clytemnestra stood over the bodies and called it justice for Iphigenia. She and Aegisthus took the throne and kept it for years, until Agamemnon's son, Orestes, came home from exile and killed them both, honoring the family rule of answering one murder with 2. The Greeks needed a war, a decade, a curse, and a pile of corpses to end one marriage. In Egypt, a jealous husband managed the same result with a lump of wax. Ancient Egypt, in a legendary Old Kingdom setting from the 3rd millennium BCE, Nefret was married to Webener, a priest and magician who could turn craft supplies into murder weapons. Most spouses would file that under reasons not to cheat. Nefret filed it under later. She noticed a young man crossing her husband's estate and sent him a gift. The story never names the pair, so we will call the man K. Nefret invited him into a pavilion beside the estate's private lake and told the caretaker to lay out food and drink. The two of them spent the whole day inside. Afterward, Kay went down to the lake for a swim, having decided the safest place to relax after sleeping with a magician's wife was the magician's personal water. The caretaker saw all of it and reported to Webener the next morning. Webener did not shout. He did not confront anyone. He opened his box of magical tools, took out a piece of wax, and shaped a crocodile small enough to hide in his palm. He handed it to the caretaker with 3 quiet instructions. Wait until Kay comes back. Wait until he is in the water. Throw this in behind him. Nefret invited Kay back. Same pavilion, same day together, same walk to the same lake, because apparently good adultery keeps a reliable calendar. The caretaker dropped the wax figure into the water. It hit the surface and became a living crocodile, over 12 feet long, took Kai in its jaws, and pulled him under. Weboner did not let it finish him. He kept the lover trapped beneath the lake for 7 days, waiting for King Nebka to visit. When the royal tour reached the water's edge, Weba owner called the crocodile up, with Kai still in its mouth, touched the beast, and turned it back into a toy in his hand. Then he explained the whole affair to the king. Nebka had the crocodile take Kai for good, and ordered Nefret burned, her ashes thrown into the river. The affair lasted a few afternoons. The reply required a priest, a king, an execution, and a reptile built to order. Weba owner kept his revenge inside his own house. A Persian king was about to lose brothers, nephews, and most of his dignity, and the whole collapse would begin with a piece of clothing. Sardis, in the Persian Empire, around 479 BCE. King Xerxes survived a catastrophic invasion of Greece, came home, and managed to wound nearly every relative he had without leaving the palace. It began when he wanted his brother Mycenae's wife. Her name went unrecorded, so we will call her Vara. Vara said no. Xerxes took the rejection like a strategist. He married his son Darius to Vara's daughter Artente, betting that pulling the daughter into the family would bring the mother within reach. The plan worked in the wrong direction. Xerxes forgot about Vara and started an affair with Artente instead. She was his niece. She was also his son's brand new wife. He had arranged an entire marriage to get near one woman and ended up with the bride. One day he visited Artente in a magnificent robe that Queen Mistress had woven for him with her own hands. Feeling generous, he told his lover she could have anything she asked for. She asked for the robe. Xerxes saw the trap instantly. He offered gold. He offered cities. He offered her an army under her own command. Artente turned down all of it and held out for the one item that would tell the queen precisely where her husband had been taking his clothes off. He gave in and handed it over. Artente wore the robe in public. A mistress saw it and understood everything in a heartbeat. Then she blamed the wrong woman. Rather than touch Artente, she decided Vara must have arranged the affair, even though Vara was the single person in this story who had refused Xerxes. A mistress waited for the king's birthday feast, the one day Persian custom required him to grant any request, and asked him to hand Vara over. Xerxes knew exactly how that would end. He argued, he offered his brother a different bride, and his wife refused to move. Vara was handed over and mutilated. When Mycenae saw what had been done to her, he gathered his sons and rode for Bactria to raise a revolt. Xerxes sent troops. Mycenae and his sons were cut down before they reached safety. It started because a king wanted his brother's wife, moved to his son's wife, and detonated over a souvenir. Armies were on the table. Artente chose the receipt. Xerxes lost his family because a mistress wanted proof. In northern Britain, a queen was about to lose an entire kingdom, and she lit the fuse herself by promoting the wrong man on her staff. Northern Britain, sometime in the 50s or 60s CE, Queen Clytemnestra ruled the Brigantes, one of the largest and most powerful confederations in Britain. Her husband, Venutius, was a respected warrior. Her new partner, Velocadus, carried Venutius's weapons for a living. Few love triangles have ever been organized this efficiently. Clytemnestra had made herself one of Rome's most useful allies. When the resistance leader, Caradicus, came to the Brigantes for shelter, she clapped him in irons and handed him to the Romans, who paraded him through the capital during the emperor's triumph. She collected Roman support and serious wealth. Venutius grew to hate Rome with equal energy. Their marriage now held a queen, an anti-Roman warrior, and an occupying empire. Then Clytemnestra dropped Venutius and raised his own armor-bearer to the throne beside her. Velocadus had spent his career at Venutius's shoulder, close enough to hand him a blade and keep him breathing in battle. Now he had the man's wife and his crown. Venutius lost his marriage, his position, and an employee in one reshuffle. He answered with a civil war. Many Brigantes sided with him. Roman troops rushed in and pulled Clytemnestra out, but Venutius survived and waited for a better moment. It came in 69 CE, the year of the 4 emperors, when Roman armies were too busy fighting each other to babysit a British ally. Venutius struck again. This time, Rome could save the queen, but not her kingdom. Venutius took control, and Clytemnestra and Velocadus vanished from the record for good. Tacitus, the Roman who preserved the story, frames it as adultery driven by a scheming queen. He also plainly disliked her. and she may already have left Venudius before she ever chose Vellocatus. The war was real. The love life timeline is fuzzier. Either way, swapping your warrior husband for the man who carried his armor proved hard to keep quiet. Cartimandua at least waited for her marriage to fall apart before she moved on. A Roman empress decided waiting was for other people, and threw a wedding while her first husband still held the most powerful job on earth. Rome, 48 CE. Empress Messalina married another man. The complication was that she was still married to Emperor Claudius. She had been carrying on with Gaius Silius, a senator Roman writers describe as almost unfairly handsome. Silius divorced his own wife for her. Imperial furniture started migrating into his house. Discretion was clearly not the goal. Then the couple decided even the pretense was too much effort. While Claudius was out of the city on religious duties, Messalina and Silius held a full wedding, with an appointed day, witnesses, sacrifices, a banquet, public embraces, and a wedding night. Tacitus says they followed it with a grape harvest festival, Messalina waving a ceremonial staff, while Silius wore an ivy crown. She had married a senator in her husband's own capital, then threw an after-party. The court realized this was bigger than an affair. If Silius married the empress and adopted her son Britannicus, he had the raw materials for a claim on the throne. The freedman Narcissus moved first and sent 2 women to break the news to Claudius. According to Tacitus, the emperor kept asking whether he was still emperor and whether Silius was still a private citizen. Under the circumstances, fair questions. Silius went to the forum and tried to carry on his normal duties, as if marrying the emperor's wife had been a minor diary clash. He was arrested and executed. Messalina raced to reach Claudius and plead her case, since she had talked her way out of trouble before. Over dinner, the emperor began to soften and said the poor creature could defend herself in the morning. Narcissus, certain she would win him back by breakfast, did not wait. He sent soldiers that night. Messalina reached for a dagger, could not do it herself, and a soldier finished it. When they told Claudius his wife was dead, he asked for another cup of wine and kept eating. Maybe he was in shock. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he had simply had enough weddings for 1 week. 5 cultures, 5 eras, 5 affairs. 1 murdered a returning king. 1 produced a homemade crocodile. 1 nearly triggered a Persian rebellion. 1 cost a Celtic queen her kingdom. And 1 left a Roman emperor asking, mid-meal, whether he was still in charge.